Then the DOJ announced on Christmas Eve that it was combing through 1 million more documents only recently discovered. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said the release of those documents will take weeks. Now, the president clearly wants the Jeffrey Epstein story to go away, but the DOJ's slow work releasing the files is keeping it pretty much in the headlines. Joining me now is MS Now legal analyst Christy Greenberg. She's the host of Courtside with Christy Greenberg and a former federal prosecutor. And Steve Schmidt, co-founder of the Save America movement, host of the podcast The Warning with Steve Schmidt, and a former Republican campaign advisor. Good morning to you both. Christy, how would the DOJ discover 1 million more documents that they didn't know about? I understand this is coming out of the Southern District of New York, but given the direction from Congress, how does this even happen?
Well, one way it happens is the fact that the Trump administration decided to fire the lead prosecutor on the Epstein and Maxwell cases, Maureen Comey. Maureen Comey would know where all of these files are. You have a number of prosecutors who are trying to essentially follow where all the documents are and figure out what's in the file. Well, Maureen Comey knew what was in the file, and they fired her. And she's actually suing the DOJ to get her job back. So what DOJ should do if they actually cared about making sure they had everything and that every I was dotted, every T was crossed, if they actually cared, which they clearly don't, they would bring her back and give her her job. How does this happen? Yeah, it's a bunch of people who really don't know what's going on, who are trying to find things and are clearly failing in doing so.
Steve, how does the manner in which the files have been released affected how President Trump is perceived in all of this? How is that affecting the actual president in perception where he's concerned?
Well, the president's approval numbers are in a state of collapse. He has an approval level in the 30s. We've seen the electoral implications for that in special elections from Mississippi to Pennsylvania, so on and so forth. The net effect of all of it is the release has confused the situation even more than it was confused about who did what. And one of the things that will not come out of 1 million files or 10 million more is some smoking gun piece of evidence that catches Ghislaine, Epstein, and Donald Trump in bed with one another. The simple truth of this is that Jeffrey Epstein was somebody that Donald Trump was very close to. They were best friends. And there is across American society at the elite level, top level, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, presidents, potentates, billionaires. This was all cleaned up when they were with Jeffrey Epstein. They didn't see any of the girls. They didn't see any of the stuff on the walls. BS. Bill Gates is an example of somebody that fits in a cohort of people like, hey, I'm going to save the world. But he didn't have much interest, I suppose, in saving any of the girls that he saw walking around. If you're an adult male and you walk into a room, a house, a building, or whatever, and you see a guy who's in his 50s surrounded by teenagers, what does that tell you? There's no secrets here. There's no mystery. Power abused innocence. Law enforcement did not believe the innocent girls. They believed the powerful men. The corrupt federal prosecutor who cut the lenient deal, exposing the rule of law as a joke in this country, goes on to become a cabinet secretary. There's nothing new to learn in the Epstein files. The American people know everything there is to know about Donald Trump and this relationship. It's a cop-out that, oh, maybe he didn't do it. Maybe something bad didn't happen. Nonsense. This is the most notorious child sex predator of the 21st century. His accomplice was moved to a minimum security prison after a social call by the Deputy Attorney General. We have an uneven justice system What the release of the Epstein files has done is take a society that has no trust in any institution, in any leader, and make it worse.
Well, I want to ask,
Truth is out there.
Steve, thank you for that. I want to ask Christy about that notion of what the public knows and what's being released, because Congress is clearly taking an interest with this. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie say that the releases so far fail to comply with the law that has been passed. Given that, if that is the case, Christy, what recourse do either of them have? Do the legislators who went forward to codify this or to pass this demand for the DOJ, what can they do?
Well, the first thing they should do is seek information about the basis for any redactions or documents that are being withheld. If it's victim information that would identify victims, there's no problem there. Everybody agrees that should be redacted from the files. But if they are asserting some kind of privilege, whether it is deliberative process, attorney work product, or attorney-client privilege, which the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche suggested that Donald Trump is asserting when, in fact, I don't think that the client here is Donald Trump. He was Todd Blanche's client when he was his lawyer before he became president. But right now, we, the people, are DOJ's client. So he has no basis to assert an attorney-client privilege over any materials. So they should find out why, what privileges are being asserted, what the basis is, and if there are any exceptions, identify them. And then I think there is a very strong argument under the Act that there is no permission for documents to be withheld on the basis of privileged information. That is what they are relying on, I imagine, to redact documents like prosecution memos, which SDNY prepared and there was a heading in one of those prosecution memos from November of 2020 when Donald Trump's DOJ was in office that said anticipated charges. And this was after Ghislaine Maxwell was already charged. So what that tells me is that SDNY was anticipating bringing charges against other co-conspirators. That is the likely inference from that. They were meeting with the Deputy Attorney General. If they had nothing there, they weren't looking at anybody else, there's no reason to bring this up to the Deputy Attorney General. So that whole memo is redacted other than saying anticipated charges and that a meeting with the Deputy Attorney General took place. That is exactly the kind of information that the American people want to see. If SDNY did want to bring charges against other people, who stopped it? Who was responsible for that decision? And what was the evidence that would have allowed them to bring such a case? Those kinds of things are what should be seen, and I don't think privileges apply. So that kind of isolation of what those privileges are, that should be determined in court. The congressional Republicans and Democrats that passed this bill, they should file a lawsuit asking a judge to compel this Department of Justice to produce any inappropriately withheld or redacted materials. A judge should rule on those privileges and exceptions and then issue an order that inappropriately redacted or withheld files must be produced. If the DOJ fails to comply, then they are in contempt of a court order and can be found in contempt of court. Any other avenue here doesn't really work because, sure, you could find them in contempt of Congress, but are they really going to put these guys in jail or detain them? No. And you can refer them for criminal prosecution to the DOJ, but the inmates are running the asylum, so that's not going to do any good. This has to be handled in court. That's what their next move should be.
Steve, I've got about 60 seconds left. I just want very quickly, can you explain why this story seems like it is breaking through for Republicans now?
Well, it's breaking through for Republicans because the Epstein conspiracy was at the root and branch of so much of the MAGA movement. The allegation was that there was an international conspiracy of pedophiles that were running the world. And at some crazy level, they don't seem to be so far off. I do want to say something because the last answer was a legal response to what's a political question. The contempt of court is meaningless, means nothing to this administration. Congress is a co-equal branch of government. The administration is not compliant with the law. Congress has inherent contempt authority in the Constitution. So it's great to say, well, just wave away. Congress won't use the authority because why? This next election, the platform of the Democratic Party must be to use the full power available to make what's happening, the abuse of power, stop. Congress has an absolute power to lock up Pam Bondi in the Congress for failing to comply. It is an undisputed power. It's been used many, many times by the Congress. And if Donald Trump is talking about using the Alien and Sedition Act, what it requires is a Democratic leadership to pull their heads out of there, you know where, and to use the inherent authorities of the Article 1 branch 100% of the time with 100% conviction that they're not subordinate to the executive, they will comply or not, and that there will be a constitutional standoff. Over and over again, the entry position of all people on all of these issues is that the Democratic side cannot, for some reason, use the same level of power that is being used against them lawfully, constitutionally. It's just wiped away. Can't happen. Why? I don't know. But unless it does happen, we're in danger of losing the republic because the Trump administration is wanton in their disregard for a congressional law. They don't have a choice to comply with this. And the fact that they're obstinate, that they're refusing, that they're contemptuous has been the dominant theme from hour one of this administration. And it's been tolerated not by the American people, but by the Congress. And the American
Steve,
people will have to empower Congress to make it stop, or it goes on and on and on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. I hate to cut you off, but we have got to take a break now. But I want to thank both you and Christy Greenberg, Steve Schmidt, for getting us started on this hour of Velshi.